Bandicoot Retrospective. Press start to begin.
The year is 2007, and that's right, baby. There's multiple versions of Crash of the Titans. Today, we will be talking about the elusive GBA version of this thing. Finding information on the development of this game is surprisingly difficult. In fact, if you look on Wikipedia, there isn't a single mention of this version of the game at all. There's only a page for the console version and the DS version. What we do know is that this version of Crash of the Titans was developed by Amaze Entertainment and produced by Sierra Entertainment. Will this mysterious game be worth unearthing, or should this game be left forgotten by history? Let's find out. You'd think being a handheld version of Crash of the Titans that it would have the same story, but it's actually pretty different. The main story beats are there, but the execution is where things differ. One day on Wumpa Island, Crash was taking a nap. What is this, Kirby? Aku Aku appears and tells Crash that the power of the Tiki Masks is being disturbed and suspects Cortex and Uka Uka are up to their shit once again. Meanwhile, with the villains, Cortex reveals his plan to the rest of the villains, all the same ones from the console version. Uka Uka, Tiny, Engine, Dingodile? What the hell? This game has more villains? Neat. Cortex says that he will use the power of the Tiki Masks to power his Doominator machine to take over the world. Uka Uka sends Cortex out to destroy Crash so that they can ensure their victory. When he encounters Crash, he gets easily defeated. Cortex comes back to the base having failed his mission, and then gets immediately fired by Uka Uka as punishment. Uka Uka puts on Nina Cortex to be in charge of the Doominator's creation and forces a kidnapped Coco to do it. With Coco and Crunch kidnapped and the world at stake, Crash has his adventure set out before him. Crash collects the stolen Tiki Masks, defeats all of the bosses, saves Crunch, and defeats Nina in her twisted treehouse and saves Coco. Interestingly enough, defeating Nina is where the console version ended, but this game decides to do something interesting. After Nina and her spider bot are defeated, Uka Uka ends up firing her too, coming to the conclusion that all Cortexes are useless. So of course, the greatest course of action is to rehire Cortex. Now that the family is back together, Cortex and Nina work together to launch the Doominator as is and try to take over the world together. Crash and Aku Aku appear in the nick of time and defeat those two once and for all, leaving them completely powerless. The game ends as the console version does, with the gang celebrating with some pancakes. This time, instead of Crash saying his first word, he says his first entire sentence. That's so much funnier. What world am I living in? All of the things that I had a problem with in the console version story is done way better here. I love that Nina and Cortex reconcile by the end of the game and decide to work together. It's a great scene of characterization between the two of them that remembers the fact that those two are literally family. Also, Tiny is written to be like Tiny. Instead of just being an unfunny Mike Tyson impression, he talks a bunch about how he's going to crush Crash and smash him into bits. That's the Tiny Tiger I know and love. Even though the writing is still not as funny as previous games, it doesn't go into the realm of cringe like the console version did. All in all, the story to this game is way, way better. With all of that in mind, Crash of the Titans on the GBA's story gets my rating of a B. Crash of the Titans on the GBA is literally a one-to-one recreation if Crash of the Titans was 2D. This game goes through a level-to-level structure with each island being a whole level with multiple parts. Through this level, you punch and kick enemies to your heart's desires, collecting Mojo and Wumpa Fruit in order to level yourself up and jacking Titans. Not once does it ever feel like any sort of Crash Bandicoot game. It is a Crash game only in name and characters, nothing else. This feels more like a movie tie-in game than anything else. You just meander through each stage, defeating enemies, collecting objects, and fighting bosses. It doesn't do anything significant, it doesn't put any interesting twists on the platforming formula. Hell, the spin isn't even in this game. It's just a game that exists, and that's all it's set out to be. It feels like it exists more as a time waster than as a game. The boss battles kinda suck ass too. The bosses in this game work the exact same way as the normal Titans do. The idea is that you are supposed to damage the bosses, jack them, and then defeat a bunch of enemies with them until you get defeated. But I just want to be done with the level, so I just ignore jacking the bosses because if you just defeat them, the boss fight ends. The only reason to jack the boss and defeat the extra enemies is to get more mojo, but at no point does leveling up make me feel stronger. Hell, I barely died in this game. Unlike the console port, which is insanely hard, this game goes too far in the opposite direction. It's insanely easy. It honestly feels like they did not put a lot of effort into this game. The perfect way to describe it is that it is an afterthought of a game. With all of that in mind, Crash of the Titans on the GBA's gameplay gets my rating of a C+. Not only does this game have the bad redesigns of all the characters, but it also tries to make the 3D models work in 2D again. It just kinda looks cheap. I don't understand how Crash the Huge Adventure was able to make the original Crash model look so good in 2D, and then every game afterwards just made it look cheap. What does look good is the art used in the text boxes. The sprite art of the redesigned characters actually looks pretty good and stylized. Honestly, I would have preferred if this game took a more bold approach and made nice stylized 2D sprites, rather than just trying to make 3D models 2D again. I feel like it would have worked to this game's advantage. The music in this game certainly tries. I have to give it credit for being very upbeat and trying to be fun and happy-go-lucky. Unfortunately, to me, the game's soundtrack lacks cohesion. There is no central theme to the soundtrack to make it sound like one unified soundtrack, other than it sounding like it belongs on a Game Boy Advance. The console version at least tried to keep this tropical jungle type sound within each song. This game does whatever it feels like. I do have to say though, that the final boss theme is pretty terrible. Like, god damn, it tests my mental fortitude. Thank God the final boss is easy as balls, or else I'd go nuts from having to hear this song over and over again. Like, listen to this crap. That's Resident Evil Director's Cut Mansion basement theme levels of bad. Okay, maybe it's not that bad, but it still sucks. With all of that in mind, Crash of the Titans for the GBA's presentation gets my rating of a B-. To complete Crash of the Titans on the GBA, you must beat all of the levels, defeat all of the bosses, collect all of the tiki masks within each stage, and beat all of the arena battles for each level. In every stage in the game, there are a certain number of tiki masks for Crash to collect of varying colors. These are just rewards for exploring the stages. If there's a branching pathway, chances are there is a tiki mask at the end of it. Collecting these tiki masks are actually kind of annoying for two reasons. Firstly, the stages are so long that going back into a stage to search for whatever tiki mask you missed is really annoying. You're able to fast travel to certain parts of the stage, but the problem is, there is no indicator for which parts of the islands you got all of the masks in. So you have no choice but to start from the beginning. The other annoyance is that if you go too far on a branching path and then realize that it's just the way to go to progress through the stage and you want to go back to explore, the game won't let you. There are plenty of times in every stage where the game will refuse to scroll left to get to a previous part of the same level. This makes exploration really risky and really annoying because there is no indication which direction is the rest of the stage and which is a dead end that leads to a tiki mask. The game wants you to explore to find these secrets, but also actively punishes you for not being psychic because they aren't clear enough with their level design. Getting all of the tiki masks in a stage will unlock the arena for that island. All the arena tasks you with doing is defeating a set amount of waves of enemies. Completing these contributes nothing to the completion tracker in the game, and there's also no completion reward for completing the game as far as I can tell. Plus, research on this game is scarce. All you get is the words 100% complete underneath every island. I mean, the game isn't super hard to complete, so I'm not too upset at the lack of completion bonus, but it was just annoying enough for me to still want one. I wouldn't really recommend completing this one. Crash of the Titans for the GBA is such a strange game. With an admittedly improved story, gameplay that just exists, a presentation that is mediocre at best and terrible at worst, and a completion that's easy but still annoying and offers no reward, Crash of the Titans for the GBA just feels like an afterthought of a game rather than something that Amaze tried to make legitimately good. It feels like what happened is that Sierra Entertainment wanted a handheld port of the game, Amaze said, "Oh, we're producing the DS version," and then Sierra went, "Great, what about the Game Boy?" And then Amaze said, "What about the Game Boy?" and then shit this out. As far as handheld Crash games go, it's no Crash Purple, but it's also no huge adventure either. With all of that in mind, Crash of the Titans for the GBA gets my overall rating of a B-. Just a painfully mediocre handheld game. Thank you everybody so much for watching this video, and if you like the Crash retrospective, please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next episode. We also have merch in the description below where you can get our shirts, mugs, and stickers to enrich your gameplay experience. I'd like to give a special shout out to Andrew's Retro Games for being the most well-esteemed guest of them all. You could also become a channel member to get all of these videos when I'm finished editing them as opposed to when they're scheduled to come out. Next week, we'll be looking at the next Crash game in the lineup, Crash of the Titans for the DS. With that, I'm Bottles, and I bid you, my well-esteemed guests, adieu.